Hey, what's going on, YouTube? It's time. Let's talk about the Flaming Manticore. The newest Warpet was just released with our two new heroes. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how the pet works, some good hero pairings to go with it. We'll talk about how to build it out, and finally, we'll compare the Flaming Manticore to other magic pets to see, is this the new meta pet? Does it have a limited role, or should you just stick with the good old Sapphires? All right, so stay tuned, sit back, relax, as we talk about the latest reskin Manticore, but this time it does magic damage. Okay, so let's talk through how the pet works. And we'll start with the talent skill Fire Cage. Okay, so Fire Cage is doing three things. First thing it's doing is it's doing single target damage to whatever your target is. Damage factor is determined by the intelligence on your pet and the star level of your talent skill. Nothing surprising there, very straightforward. Okay, the second thing it does is whenever you hit your target, in addition to doing whatever damage you did, you're going to drop a little pool of lava at your target's feet, okay? And that anyone standing in that pool of lava, any enemy legion standing in that pool of lava, is going to take ticking damage per second for 3 seconds, up to a maximum of 3 enemy legions. Okay, the important thing here is that the lava damage is determined by the star level of Fire Cage, but your pet's attributes have no impact on that damage factor. Okay, the third thing is its internal buff mechanic, stacks of burning marks. Anytime your legion does magic damage via an innate skill, you're going to get a stack of burning mark. You can get up to two stacks per second, and you can get a maximum of 7 stacks. And then when your pet casts its Fire Cage, its talent skill, it clears all the stacks of burning marks and does bonus damage, based on how many marks you did. This bonus damage is influenced by the star level of Fire Cage, but not any of your pet attributes. Okay, so 3 things: single target damage, a little pool of lava which does a bit of AoE damage, and then buffs itself whenever your legion does magic skill damage via an innate skills. All right, and last thing here, just a reminder, what's an innate skill? Those are your 5 fixed skills that every hero starts with. You basically can never change them. There's the random seasons where you can change out skills, but other than that, you can never change these. And it's not your pets, it's not your talents, it's not your artifacts, it's got to be the skills. Okay, so how about the unique skills? Well, let's start with the Amber skill Advanced Fire Cage. This one's pretty straightforward. It increases the direct damage you do, that's all it does. Obviously, it's an Amber skill, so it's always going to be 3 stars. And with a very good spirit, you can get a bonus of about 85% to the talent skill, which is honestly pretty strong. Okay, what about the Pet Shop skill Intense Fire Cage? Well, this actually has a tooltip error in it right now. It says right now increases the effect of burning mark gained via Fire Cage by 1%. You don't get burning marks via Fire Cage. Remember, you can only get burning marks through your innate skills. It will not give you any stacks of burning mark. What this should say is increases the effect of burning mark on Fire Cage by 1%. And if you max this out, you can get to about 13.5% bonus effect from Fire Cage. And remember, you can get up to 7 stacks, so you multiply that by 7. It can get pretty powerful. Okay, so who does the pet work well with? It's going to be no shock to you that it works well with one of the new heroes. In particular, Young Ming. This pet works awesome with Young Ming, and the reason is Young Ming is doing a ton of skill damage throughout the rage cycle, right? Most heroes, most mages in particular, are only going to do skill damage once per rage cycle, but Young Ming is frequently doing skill damage with just his normal attacks. And not only is his first skill a passive skill that does skill damage, basically every other second, but he has other skills as well that's going to do skill damage throughout the rage cycle. And so he's going to enable the Flaming Manticore to build up stacks of burning marks very quickly. Awesome with Young Ming. What about Gamora? Why is Grimora, sorry. Honestly, this pet's not very good for her at all. Grimora looks very powerful. Her rage skill does 1800 when you get up to 5 stars, and if you awaken her, it goes all the way to 2000, and she gets a massive bonus to hero skill damage. But this is all single target skill damage that happens once per rage cycle. That's not what the Flaming Manticore works. Now look, if you have Young Ming and Grimora paired together, it's going to be fine, right? The Flaming Manticore is going to do just fine because Young Ming is going to carry it all by himself. But if you don't have them together, if you split them up, or if you don't have Young Ming, you just have Grimora, the Flaming Manticore is not a good choice. Okay, so when I first read Young Ming's first skill here, it very much reminded me of another magic hero, and that's Tohar. Right, he also has a passive skill for his first skill, so no rage cycle, but he's doing magic skill damage frequently with his normal attacks. Tohar is an excellent player with the Flaming Manticore. He's going to help that pet build up a lot of those marks throughout the rage cycle, so another good pick for the Flaming Manticore. Okay, what about other heroes? Well, you might have a question about how AoE interacts with the Flaming Manticore. For example, Lily here, she can hit up to 3 legions. If she does her rage skill, does she get credit for that? The answer is yes, partially. If she hits 3 legions, she will get credit for that, but only 2 marks, because remember, the Flaming Manticore can only trigger twice per second. So it will count AoE in your favor, but it won't give you the full weight, right? It's only going to give you at a maximum of 2 marks per second. The other thing with Lilia is her rage skill can kind of give you lingering damage, a 50-50 chance to inflict Scorch, which will give ticking damage for 5 seconds. The Flaming Manticore does not care about the ticking Scorch damage. It will give you credit for the rage skill, but these Scorch ticks, it won't give you any credit for that, all right? It's kind of the same thing with Valen. His rage skill can kind of do lingering damage. You only get 1 credit for that. Now, interestingly, Thundolin kind of has a similar effect, but it's every 2 seconds. The Flaming Manticore does credit every tick of this with Thundolin. So it works pretty well with Thundolin. The AoE heroes, it kind of works. So Lilia or Valen or even Walder, they're okay. The single target heroes like Grimora, like Bert, does not work very well with them. They cannot power this pet by themselves. Okay, so how do we build this guy out? Well, the first question you might ask is, given that there's 2 sources of damage on the pet, the single target damage and the lava pool sort of AoE damage, how do these skills, resonance, magic fortune, etc., interact with the 2 different types of damage on the pet, right? Can the lava pool even crit, for example? So the good news, as it turns out, is that the lava pool and the primary source of damage, they both take advantage of all your generic magic pet damage enhancers, right? Resonance, magic fortune, elemental harmony, magic spirits, all of them work equally well with the single target damage as well as the AoE lava pool. Where things get a lot more interesting is the follow-up cast, and typically I'm very concerned about follow-up when it comes to these pets that have the buff mechanic. Because the follow-up cast goes off 2 seconds after the primary cast, usually you don't have very many buffs for that second cast. The first cast clears them all, and so the follow-up cast usually does a lot less damage, makes it less viable on some of these pets. You see this especially in the case of the Seraphic, which really suffers from that lack of buffs on the second cast. Okay, so how does the Flaming Manticore work with follow-up? So the primary damage source does have that issue, right? The primary damage source wants to take advantage of the burning marks. The follow-up cast, maybe it has a couple burning marks, maybe it doesn't have any whatsoever, and so the follow-up cast is going to do a lot less damage. The deal with follow-up is there's always a cut on follow-up. It always does less damage anyway. Now, see the 2-star here, it says 15%. That doesn't take an impact into the intelligence of your pet. And obviously you can 3-star it. But even at the very high levels, like a 3-star pet with a really good intelligence, you're going to take some cut on the follow-up damage. But not with the lava pool. The follow-up lava pools do all the damage that the normal cast lava pools do, right? Which makes follow-up extremely strong on this pet. Now, the other thing you might have thought about is, hey, follow-up goes up 2 seconds after the initial cast, but those lava pools, they last 3 seconds. So is there going to be some overlap here, and what happens then? Yes, there is going to be overlap. And the good news is, in that 1 second of overlap, both your pools will hit, right? And so the last tick from the initial cast, the first tick from the follow-up cast, they're both going to damage any targets in the area, obviously up to 3, right? So follow-up, very strong on the Flaming Manticore. Okay, so what's the final answer on how we build this pet? Honestly, we're in a pretty stale pet meta, both magic and physical pets, and the answer here is pretty much the same standard answer. Okay, we start with the talent skill, that's obvious. The second skill I would put on here is follow-up, because I love the fact that those lava pools go off at full strength. I want to take advantage of that. So I think follow-up is a must-have. If you've got the amber to burn, I would put advanced follow-up on it. That's 3 skills. What's next? Okay, so we want the magic crit package on there. We have to start with magic fortune. Magic spirits is a pretty obvious add. But then we have elemental harmony. The issue with elemental harmony is we already have fire cage and follow-up 2 intelligence skills. And we also are going to consider intense fire cage. And so we can only put one of those 2 on. All right. So elemental harmony is going to be a bit cheaper, but intense fire cage is going to do more damage, particularly if you have this pet paired with Young Min or at least Tohar to take advantage of all those burning marks. If you're using this pet with another hero, I would advise you to use elemental harmony instead. Okay, so that's 6 skills. What are the last 2 skills? Well, advanced fire cage is very good. Amber is obviously a very limited resource, and the Flaming Manticore is not one of these pets that really relies on the Amber skill. It's pretty good even without it, and so you don't have to put it on the pet if you don't want to. Resonance, I think, is a no-brainer. It's not that expensive. It's just going to help across the board. And if you have that 8th slot and you don't want to spend it, the Amber, go with Intense Follow-Up, right? I don't usually love Intense Follow-Up. However, follow-up on this pet is better than usual on a magic pet, and this is still a pretty good skill. All right, so here's my semi-tragic Flaming Manticore. This thing's substantially smarter than I am. It's amazingly lucky, but man, is it depressed. It's got the worst spirit I've ever seen a magic pet have. And the tragic thing for me is I've regenerated this 2,500 times maybe, and this is the best roll I got. This isn't final form for me, but my regeneration potions are actually running pretty low. So I had to stop, and it'll have to stay like this for a while until I have a chance to, build up a bit more of a reservoir. Okay, so what's the verdict here, right? Is the Flaming Manticore the new meta pet? Is it good in specific circumstances? Or should everyone just, stick with the good old Sapphire, right? The answer is for single target DPS, assuming you've built these things out, the Flaming Manticore is going to substantially outperform the Sapphire or really any of the other magic pets. However, if you've got everything built out, the Sapphire is still going to do more damage because its AoE is just superior. Okay, that's part 1 of this answer. The second part of this answer is the Flaming Manticore is, like, if you build it out to a B+ level, the Flaming Manticore does a lot better than the Sapphire. And the reason for that is when you look down at the Sapphire, its strength really comes from having at least 310 Spirit and the Amber skill, right? Because, that gives you 3 targets, which is why the AoE on the Sapphire is so good. Now, it's not like the Amber skill on the Flaming Manticore is bad, but it's not so critical. It's not so it's not the linchpin of the entire build of the pet. So if you don't want to invest the Amber into a new pet, or at least you can't for a while, the Flaming Manticore is going to do a lot better than the Sapphire just because it's less dependent on its Amber skill, right? So for terms of building it out, 8 slots, everything 3 stars, there's still a really good case for the Sapphire. If you're not going to go to that level, then the Flaming Manticore is clearly the better choice. The third part of the answer is it's dependent on your heroes. You need something to fuel the burning mark stacks on the pet, right? So Young Ming is great at that. Tohar is very good at that. And then Thundolin is okay. And then finally the AoE heroes, Lilia, Valen, Mu, even Walder will do some empowerment of the Flaming Manticore, but you got to make sure that they have a deputy that's also backing them up. The single target magic heroes, Gramora, Bertrand, just are not going to work. Alright, so that's the new Flaming Manticore. I think it's a good pet. I think it definitely has a place in the meta. It's not the answer for all situations. I expect to see it often out in the battlefield. Hey, and that's all I got for you today. And until next time, you stay classy, Belleron.